Inside the Magic, show number 392 for October 7th, 2012. It is Sunday, October 7th, 2012. This is show 392 of Inside the Magic, and as always, I am your host, Ricky Briganti. Got another great show packed with Disney, theme park news, a whole lot more fun, and before we get to all of that, I do invite you to visit InsideTheMagic.net. That's our website where you'll find all of our podcasts, as well as videos, photos, news, articles, and plenty more. And if you ever have any news, tips, questions, comments, anything else you want to send in, you can write to me via email at ricky@InsideTheMagic.net, or you can also call and leave a message at 407-494-4ITM. That's 4486. And now, let's get on with the show. This week's episode of Inside the Magic is brought to you by Magical Travel. You can receive a free shipboard credit when you book your Disney cruise vacation with Magical Travel. Shipboard credits are good towards merchandise, spa treatments, shore excursions, and more. You can book all of that by calling Magical Travel today at 866-207-8387 or visit them online at magicaltravel.com to receive a free price quote. And be sure to mention Inside the Magic to receive your free Disney gift card for qualifying bookings when you book your Disney vacation with Magical Travel. And of course, thanks to listeners and viewers like you for any of your donations, one-time, monthly, recurring donations. You can sign up for all of that over at the website, and while you're there, click through those affiliate links as well. Thanks very much for clicking on those, Amazon, etc. Anytime you click that and then shop through those links, we get a tiny bit of credit for your purchases, and it helps support the show, of course. So thanks very much for that. And now, let's get started with our trip around the world. So this week's musical selections in the background are all going to be from the score to the most excellent movie, Frankenweenie, which I will be reviewing a little bit later in the show. I thoroughly enjoyed this film. I'm happy to feature Danny Elfman's music here on the show in the background while we talk about all the usual fun Disney and theme park things, and then we'll get to the movie itself. So away we go. So first up, of course, turning away from Frankenweenie for the moment, we're going to start out here at Walt Disney World, where some pretty exciting news has shown up this week, where Disney has announced the dates and the specifics for signing up for annual pass holder previews of New Fantasyland at the Magic Kingdom. Of course, that is the biggest expansion ever at the Magic Kingdom, more than doubling the size of Fantasyland. A lot of it is going to be opening officially in December, later in November, but annual pass holders get a chance to be among the first to preview it in early November. Sign-ups for these previews, and there are several slots that you'll be able to sign up for. Sign-ups begin very soon, tomorrow, in fact, October 8th at noon Eastern Time. You're going to want to log on to the Walt Disney World Annual Pass Holder section of their website, and you'll have a chance to sign up for one 3.5-hour time slot. The dates and times are as follows. November 3rd, which is a Saturday, there are 3 slots, 8 a.m. to 11:30 a.m., 12:30 p.m. to 4 p.m., and 5 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. Then the next available slot will be 1 week later on November 10th, same times, and then the third possible day will be November 11th, which is a Sunday, and the same times will be available for that as well. Up to 8 annual pass holders can be registered simultaneously, so you don't have to worry about if you have a whole family who wants to go. You don't have to sign them up individually and worry about them all getting in. You'll have a chance to put them all in, but everybody attending is going to have to be an annual pass holder. You can't bring any additional guests that are not pass holders. Also, when you sign up, you're going to have to choose one of 2 itineraries. You're not going to be able to do absolutely everything in that 3.5 hours, though you can freely explore and walk around. You will have to pick between the Enchanted Tales with Belle itinerary or the Under the Sea or the Little Mermaid itinerary. That is, both of them will include a ride on Under the Sea, Journey of the Little Mermaid ride, of course, the dark ride. Both of them will include a chance to walk around the Be Our Guest restaurant. No food will be served during this previews, but you'll get to explore and look around and take pictures and all that good stuff. The difference between the Mermaid itinerary and the Belle itinerary is that one group, those who sign up for Belle, Belle will get to go through Enchanted Tales with Belle, which I've talked about recently here on the show, and it's on and off previews that have been going on. The other group will get to go through Ariel's Grotto and have a chance to meet and greet with Ariel. So do you want to see Belle? Do you want to see Ariel? There's your choice. The pass holder preview registration is limited to just one of those two per pass holder, and only one sign up per pass holder. So you can't sign up on the 3rd and then come back on the 10th. It's only one of those, and you'll have to bring in a printed version of your confirmation to be able to get in. There will be some food and beverages served within New Fantasyland. Other than that, you'll just be kind of walking around. There will be some merchandise available. Disney actually put up something called the Fantasyland Commemorative Collection online already. Online through October 14th, you'll be able to purchase just about 5 or so New Fantasyland items. A couple of shirts, a hat, I think a keychain and a pin. That's about it. Nothing terribly special, but if you're not able to make it to the annual pass holder previews, of course, the general preview phase, where everybody at the Magic Kingdom will be able to take part in enjoying New Fantasyland, will happen on November 19th, and then the grand opening is going to be December 6th. Of course, that does not include Princess Fairy Tale Hall or the Seven Dwarves Mine Train, which are opening in the coming years. One sort of footnote to all of this, the pass holders will still not even be the first to be in there, because cast member previews are beginning October 20th, and sign-ups for that just happened a couple of days ago. Cast members are allowed to bring some guests, so I'm sure you will see plenty of pictures and video and reports and all of that from New Fantasyland popping up online well in advance of even the pass holder previews. Along the same lines as New Fantasyland, though just a little bit down the path, talking about Storybook Circus, of course, well, Disney has put essentially the finishing touches on Storybook Circus. I'm sure there are some tweaks here and there, but the majority of the major elements of Storybook Circus are now opening, or are now open with the debut of Pete's Silly Sideshow. That's a meet and greet with some classic Disney characters, kind of all side by side inside a big top circus tent. In there, you'll meet some familiar faces and some unfamiliar scenery. You've got Minnie Magnifique, who of course is Minnie Mouse, posing as a circus star, or dressed up as a circus star. She's got some poodles behind her, and it's all very pink, the photo op. You've got Madame Daisy Fortuna, who is a fortune teller version of Daisy Duck. Then you've got the Great Goofini. Of course, the Great Goofini, you know the name from the Barnstormer, the new theme of that attraction. It's kind of an Evel Knievel kind of stunt version of Goofy. And then Donald Duck as the astounding Donaldo. He's a snake charmer. So that is Pete's Silly Sideshow. It is open now at the Magic Kingdom. Jumping over now to Disney's Hollywood Studios, I've read a few reports that the free Wi-Fi that has previously been made available at the Magic Kingdom as well as at Epcot is now apparently available, or at least in testing, over at Hollywood Studios. Of course, the ultimate plans are to have it at all 4 parks, Downtown Disney, and perhaps even the water parks by 2013. Speaking of technology, there's been a lot of talk of FastPass Plus or Next-Gen FastPass and the testing with the RFID cards throughout the park, but there is so much more than that has been rumored for a long time as far as Disney's Next-Gen project. It's more than just FastPasses. It's the ability for Disney to sort of know who you are and where you are in the park and be able to have the park interact with you depending on where you are. Well, this week, in fact, it may have just been a couple of days ago, the FCC published a filing with them for Disney's Magic Band. As the filing says, it's a wrist-worn device that's powered by an internal battery. It's a non-replaceable battery. There's no switch on it. Apparently, it operates on the 2.4 gigahertz spectrum. It also has RFID built into it, and this goes right along the lines with so many of the rumors as to where Disney is going with this next-gen project. According to the rumors, you would wear these wristbands, especially around the park, and you maybe pre-registered them with some information about what you like, what you don't like, maybe customize some characters, and as you're going through the park, things would change. Things would know what your preferences are. Things would know where you are, who you are. The characters could talk to you, know your name, where you've been. If you meet the same character twice, they'll remember you, and things like that. The possibilities are really endless with once they sort of have this wristband around your wrist. Whether or not this is going to cost extra, whether or not it's going to be a premium or just part of the day's experience in the parks, who knows? Disney has been not speaking about any of that, but it is indeed in the works. May not happen anytime soon, but it's out there. Disney's working on it. Let's jump over to the Grand Floridian now, where very recently, I probably should have mentioned this maybe last week or the week before, but fairly recently, a new water play area opened near the pool of the Grand Floridian, of course out here at Walt Disney World, and this play area is themed to Alice in Wonderland. It's kind of a golden-looking play area. On the top of it is one of those dump buckets, but instead of it being a bucket, it's an upside-down Mad Hatter hat. And there's a bunch of characters, sort of golden versions of characters around, some teacups, and, of course, lots of spouting water and a slide and all that kind of stuff. So if you're a big Alice in Wonderland fan, you might want to check that out next time you're over at the Grand Floridian. Now let's hop coasts out to California, over to Disneyland, where, of course, we're in the middle of Halloween time out there. You know, Haunted Mansion Holiday, Ghost Galaxy, all that good stuff. But we're not talking about that right now. We're actually looking ahead already to Christmas time, or the holidays, as they like to put it, at Disneyland. The holidays this year are going to begin November 12th, so not even that far away, a little over a month away, lasting through January 6th. And this year there will be a few new things at Disneyland for the holiday season. Over at Disney California Adventure, of course, there are some new areas. Buena Vista Street apparently is going to have vintage ornaments and decor. Cars Land's going to be decked for the holidays, including Flo's V8 Cafe, Fillmore's Taste Inn, Cozy Cone Motel, Luigi's Casa de la Tires. They'll all have decorations that fit in with those particular, the personalities of the cars who are part of each one of those. The Mad Tea Party is going to have some wintertime fun, as Disney is putting it, and then some returning bits over at California Adventure will be a Bugs Land holiday decor, as well as Phineas and Ferb's Rock and Roll and Dance Party Holiday Edition. Then over at Disneyland Park, Santa's Holly Jolly Jamboree will take place in Big Thunder Ranch, where Santa Claus will be there, of course, with games and music and crafts. There will be the candlelight ceremony and processional this year, with many more than in the past. I know I've mentioned this in recent weeks when Disney made the announcement. This year, there will be many candlelight processionals from December 3rd through the 20th. It will be open to annual pass holders and those who book dining packages as well. In addition, Sleeping Beauty Castle will become the Winter Castle once again. There will be the Believe in Holiday Magic Fireworks Show, Christmas Fantasy Parade, and It's a Small World Holiday. And of course, Haunted Mansion Holiday will stick around from the Halloween season all the way through the Christmas season as well. Now let's turn our attention, so briefly, to a park out in California that is not Disney. It's Universal Studios Hollywood, a park that I don't talk a whole lot about here. Obviously, when Transformers opened, I did. And now, of course, it's Halloween time, so I have to put in just a very tiny quick mention about Halloween Horror Nights, and specifically one of the more unique elements to that particular Halloween Horror Nights and Hollywood. It is the themed go-go dancers that sort of flank the entrance of the park. I only mention it here. Number one, they're very entertaining for obvious reasons, and because they offer some great misdirection for the characters that are around there. But number two, more importantly, I've posted a new video and some photos over on InsideTheMagic.net. If you want to see those go-go dancers in action, they're clown-themed this year, by the way. Head on over to the website to check that out, or on our YouTube channel. Speaking of videos, highly anticipated film has been given or offered its first really public look. It's the latest from producer Jerry Bruckheimer and director Gore Verbinski, previously who teamed up on the Pirates of the Caribbean series. Well, now it is The Lone Ranger, starring Johnny Depp as Tonto, Armie Hammer as the title role, The Lone Ranger, the Wild West film, of course, and the first poster and the first public trailer were released this week. You can head on over to InsideTheMagic.net or check our YouTube channel to watch that trailer and see what you think of Johnny Depp as a Native American. Also in the world of movies, coming home, or I guess it has already hit home after a long time coming, really. Cinderella, the classic animated Disney film, is now available on Blu-ray in a Diamond edition, and it's a great release. Looks great, sounds great, has some really interesting and unique extras. If you want a full review of that, head on over to InsideTheMagic.net. And final bit of news this week. This one came as a surprise to everybody. Disney Interactive announced and then subsequently also released a brand new version of Disney.com. The main Disney homepage is completely new. It's a really clean look, very simple, fast loading. They've done away with the .go.com address. It's still around sometimes if you click through to like Disneyland and Walt Disney World. Some of the sub-pages, go.com is still there for now, but I believe Disney's going to be beginning to do away with that whole go.com thing and really just in favor of using simply Disney.com, which they should have done a long time ago. So the new site is there. It's very simple, certainly worth checking out. Seems like it gives them the possibility to re-theme it in many ways. Currently, it's themed to Frankenweenie, of course, as is the show this week. But yeah, so go check that out. Official Disney site, of course, Disney.com. And that is it for your news from around the world this week. And this week's tip comes in from Laurie from Miami, Florida. A really important one, but a really simple one. Laurie writes, here's a tip that I stumbled upon recently when jogging around the Boardwalk Resort area. It's difficult to carry a wallet or money of any kind when you're running because it can be very cumbersome, but it can also get quite hot quickly under the hot Florida sun. So at the Dolphin in the Peekaboo Buffeteria, you can get a to-go cup full of water for free. This way you can rehydrate without having to worry about carrying any cash on you while you run. Laurie, great tip. Certainly getting some exercise around the theme parks, in the theme parks, or even around the theme parks. Like you said, the boardwalk is a great thing, but you certainly want to stay hydrated in the midst of that Florida heat. As you said, it can be pretty brutal out there. So certainly grabbing those cups of water is a good way to do that. You can get free water at just about any dining location around Disney. They almost will never, I'm not even sure they ever will turn away a request for some water. They, of course, want to keep every Disney guest quite hydrated. So good tip. Everyone else out there, email your tips into tips@insidethemagic.net.
Action!
Inside the Magic is proud to welcome you to the Great Movie Review.
Your young mechanic can be a panic with just a good-looking pan.
Sorry, getting carried away there with a bit more of Danny Elfman's incredible score for the even more incredible movie Frankenweenie. This is Tim Burton's latest film, and Tim Burton is back. I can't say it any other way. This is a classic Tim Burton film. It is an incredible film. I loved every single frame, every moment, every second, every scene, everything about Frankenweenie. It's one of the best movies I have seen in a very, very long time, from Burton or from otherwise. Of course, I'm a big Tim Burton fan to begin with, so that really helps my enthusiasm for it being a really good film. But it is simply a great movie. Before I get too far into that, let me mention this review is going to be spoiler-free, so don't worry if you haven't seen the film yet, which is in theaters as of a couple of days ago. Don't worry, I'm not going to spoil anything for you. So moving on, of course, Tim Burton recently has had plenty of films at the box office. Alice in Wonderland was extremely successful. Before that, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, Sweeney Todd, a lot of films that are good, and in fact some that are great, but they're not sort of that classic Tim Burton. The Tim Burton from Beetlejuice era, the Tim Burton from The Nightmare Before Christmas, the Tim Burton from Edward Scissorhands. That's a different sort of brand of Tim Burton than the more recent films. Well, guess what? Frankenweenie is that old Tim Burton. It is not sort of the new, quirky, unique style that he has come across lately. It's kind of the old, quirky, unique style that you're used to. This very well may be the best movie of the entire year, for me, at least. I'm sure the others would think some other movies are better, but this movie is fantastic. Of course, to use a awfully silly word to describe it, and it's electrifying. From the moment at the very beginning of the film, the Walt Disney Studios castle logo, the castle logo that everybody knows, turns black and white with a flash of lightning. It just takes off from there. This movie left me smiling ear to ear. The entire thing, the animation is gorgeous. Stop motion animation, very much like A Nightmare Before Christmas, but it is stunningly real looking. It's in 3D. It's in black and white, which is something unusual. Black and white and 3D and stop motion. I don't think there has been another film like that, but it totally works for Frankenweenie. I mean, it's a retelling of the classic Frankenstein story. Everybody knows that story, of course. In this case, it just happens to be a dog, Sparky, that they're bringing back to life, not a monster. Of course, instead of Frankenstein, the mad scientist, you've got Victor Frankenstein, the young boy who simply was attached to his dog. And, well, unfortunately, the dog died. And I won't even ruin any more than that. That's obvious. That's kind of the premise of the movie. But it just fits. The 3D looks fantastic. I definitely would recommend seeing this movie in 3D. There's a lot of depth, a lot of realism to it, a lot of immersion, a lot of great rain and lightning effects and all kinds of things like that. That just it really draws you in and looks truly fantastic. It's all set in the sort of bizarre town of New Holland, where everybody seems to have a pet for some reason. Like absolutely everybody. Everybody has a really unique pet. So continuing with that Sparky and Frankenweenie theme, you get to meet a lot of sort of quirky. And there's that word again. That's the best word I have to use it. You meet a lot of quirky characters, not only humans, but also the pets. My personal favorite, and certainly a favorite of my wife's, is Mr. Whiskers. You can't go wrong with Mr. Whiskers, the wide-eyed cat belonging to Weird Girl, the only character in the movie who seems to not have a real name. Just Weird Girl. That's fine. She's weird. So Mr. Whiskers is awesome, by the way. But anyway, it's a movie that features all kinds of emotions. It's not just, oh, that's so weird, or oh, that's creepy, or I mean, it is those things, but it's also, there's joy, there's disappointment, there's sadness, there's excitement, there's plenty of awkwardness, but really it ranges the whole gamut of all emotions genuinely. It makes you feel, and most of it you just feel excited. There's even some scary parts, like I would imagine some very young kids could get quite startled, even scared by some of this movie, particularly sort of the second half of the film as it moves on. The story develops, so it's definitely got some scary moments, as it should. This movie is a tribute to classic horror in so many ways. It has literal direct references to the inspiration it took from a century or roughly of horror films. Dracula and The Mummy and The Creature from the Black Lagoon, all those classic Universal monsters are just oozing through this film, but also with Tim Burton taking his own sort of spin on them, and of course Frankenstein. When Victor raises Sparky from the dead, as of course happens, that scene is just amazing, as are so many. And it's interesting because this is tied into such a long history, film history, these classic Universal monsters, but there's more of a history than that. Of course, Tim Burton has his own personal history with the Frankenweenie in general, because he's made this film before. It was a short film. It wasn't an animation film either. It was live action short years and years ago, when he had his sort of initial run as a Disney animator when he was very young, decades ago. And the film was so bizarre that it wasn't even initially backed by Disney, but now was the time for him to sort of remake it, or make it again for the first time, make it the way he wanted it, along with executive producer Don Hahn, who we spoke to a few weeks ago, like a couple of months ago, here on the show about Frankenweenie when I was out at Comic-Con. Had a chance to speak to him, and it was great to hear him sounding so passionate about it and really bringing out Tim Burton's passion as well. It's just a wonderful movie that combines characters that mean something. Each of the characters throughout the film really play an important role and a unique role. None of them are terribly expanded on or developed. I wouldn't call them one-dimensional, but maybe they're 1.5 dimensional, but they're funny and they're quirky, to use that word again, and they're just unique, and they even the characters have inspiration with sort of horror past and tied into each of their pets and all of that kind of thing. It's just a lot of fun, and the voice actors who portray these characters are phenomenal too. Of course, there's some Burton veterans, specifically from Beetlejuice. Catherine O'Hara, Winona Ryder are in there. Martin Short, who I believe is a Burton newcomer, is in there. Martin Landau has a great role, and even some talented children actually voice the lead roles, which is great. It's not adults being children, it's children being children, and they do a phenomenal job. And even the animals have great voices supplied by veteran voice actors Frank Welker and D. Bradley Baker, who, if you don't know those names, you need to go look them up, because they are super talented, and really tying it all together. And I posted these on Facebook a few days ago. If you missed them, go check them out. Although they were a little spoilery. Are these great vintage horror style posters that Disney released for Frankenweenie? I want all of them. I want them hanging in my house immediately. I cannot say enough good things about this film. I literally wanted to sit there and watch the movie again as soon as the credits ended, like immediately. I could probably watch this movie on loop for the rest of my life. It's such a good film. Now, I am speaking as a fan of horror. I am speaking as a fan of Tim Burton. Those two elements together and sort of this Nightmare Before Christmas style movie, but without the musical, introducing sort of these classic horror elements, it's just brilliant. I'm not sure I've ever gushed this much about a movie here on the show, but here I am. Go see it, obviously. Go see Frankenweenie. See it multiple times. See it because you want to. See it because I told you to. I don't care why you see it. Just go see it because this movie deserves to make $1 bazillion at the box office. It's simply phenomenal. So there it is. My review of Tim Burton's Frankenweenie. And now, with all of that said, let's try something completely different. It's time for another Inside the Magic dance break. This dance break is brought to you by the upcoming game, Just Dance Disney Party. The #1 dance game brand, Just Dance, meets the magical world of Disney, and the newest and coolest video game for the whole family, Just Dance Disney Party. Dance to songs from some of your favorite beloved Disney classic movies like Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, Jungle Book, Cinderella, and plus you can dance along to songs from the coolest Disney Channel shows like Shake It Up, Ant Farm, Jessie, Phineas and Ferb. It's perfect for kids of all ages. Just Dance Disney Party is a great way to keep the family active. The non-stop shuffle feature lets kids dance continuously to all their favorite songs. Just Dance Disney Party will be available for Kinect for Xbox 360 and the Nintendo Wii on October 23rd for $29.99, available at all major retailers. There's that word, and now let's get back to grooving along to some Muppets music. And the sound of this music should clue you in that I'm not quite done talking about Epcot's 30th anniversary quite yet. Of course, last week we featured quite a bit about the 30th anniversary. 3 interviews that I really hope you enjoyed. I enjoyed talking to those gentlemen who were instrumental in the creation of Epcot so many years ago, 3 decades ago, in fact. So this past Monday was the actual anniversary of Epcot, the 30th anniversary. And it didn't end with D23 celebration on Sunday, which is what I talked about last week on the show. No, Walt Disney World planned even more excitement for that Monday for all park guests. You didn't have to pay any extra, you just had to be in the park. And all of that started with, let's see if I reach behind me right now and grab the special map and special button that they were handing out to all those who were there on October 1st, 2012, 30 years of Epcot. So nice of them to do that. In addition, there were some special presentations. It ended with a big boom at the end of the night with a special version of the fireworks. And in the middle of the day was sort of the culmination of it all was a 45-minute ceremony over in the America Gardens Theater, the American Pavilion, of course. The ceremony was a lot longer than I thought it was going to be. I definitely was not expecting 45 minutes of time devoted to it, but it's really worthy of that because it is, well, it's Epcot. It's 30 years. The ceremony included current VP of Epcot, Aaron Youngs, talking for a while, former VP of Epcot, Jim McPhee, who was instrumental in bringing sort of the 25th anniversary celebration together, if you remember 5 years ago, and also president of Walt Disney Parks in the U.S. and Paris, Meg Crofton, said a few words. In addition, Mariachi Cobre from Mexico played a few songs songs at the beginning because they've been there since the first day of Epcot. In fact, 4 of the members have literally been there since the first day of Epcot 30 years ago, which is very impressive. And then Voices of Liberty, the a cappella singing group of Epcot, who has also been there since the beginning of Epcot, sang 2 songs throughout the presentation as well. Now, I'm not going to be sharing that whole 45-minute presentation here on the show. That is already up on YouTube. I've put it there. It's over on the website, InsideTheMagic.net. Go over there if you want to watch and listen to the whole thing. I do want to share, however, right now, sort of what I found to be the most enjoyable moment of it all. It was the first song that Voices of Liberty sang at this special presentation. They'll be introduced by Aaron Youngs, who is, again, the VP of Epcot. So let's hop over now to the American Adventure, the American Gardens Theater for the 30th anniversary of Epcot.
Over 30 years ago, right before it opened, there was a lot of construction going on. This place was hustling and bustling, people scurrying around to finish the final elements before they could open this wonderful place. It was the first day that the Voices of Liberty could come out and they could rehearse. But because there was so much going on, they actually had to have their hard hats on. So they came out into the area. They walked over to the American Adventure. They were in the rotunda. They were surrounded by construction workers. Operating participants, corporate sponsors, cast members were everywhere trying to finish up what they were focused on. What was amazing is they began to sing. And all of a sudden, around them, it became silent. Everyone stopped what they were doing. And they focused on the Voices of Liberty. It was one of the very first Epcot magical moments. And so here, to share that song with us, are the Voices of Liberty.
Oh, Shenandoah, I long to hear you.
And there you have it, the Voices of Liberty performing at the Epcot 30th anniversary celebration this past Monday, of course, October 1st, 2012. That was the first of 2 songs the Voices of Liberty sang. The second one, a bit odd choice for it. They didn't sing, you might have thought they would sing an Epcot song from the past, something that even related to Epcot, but no, they sang, I believe, A Dream is a Wish Your Heart Makes, which is kind of, in my opinion, more of a Magic Kingdom kind of song. Also, not everything was absolutely perfect when it came to this celebration. The rain was threatening the whole time. A lot of people were busting out their ponchos, worried it started to drizzle a little bit here and there, and literally as Voices of Liberty sang the final song to end it all, downpour began, which was kind of interesting that it happened literally as it ended. It's like Disney was like, hold off. Okay, now you can rain. So there it is. That was a little bit more from the Epcot 30th celebration. Of course, happy anniversary to Epcot. You can head on over to InsideTheMagic.net or check our YouTube channel if you want to see even more from all of that. Now, before we jump into some listener feedback for pretty much the rest of the show, let me put in a quick word about Lanyard Lab. This, of course, is the business that I run when I'm not doing Inside the Magic. You can find it over at lanyardlab.com. We make custom lanyards, and that's what you're going to want to use if you have a business to promote. You're going to a convention, maybe you need to wear name tags, ID cards, access cards, anything like that around your neck at a school, church, really any organization. Head on over to lanyardlab.com. Click anywhere that says Get a Quote. Submit all your details to us there to customize your own lanyard. Your own colors, text, graphics, whatever it is that you want to put on there, send that to us through that form. We'll email you back with a price quote along with a proof showing you what the lanyards will look like, and from there you can just buy it online. If you like it, of course, you can request any changes that you need from there, and there's no obligation to purchase whatsoever. Completely free to preview, so check it out over at lanyardlab.com. That's LANYARDLAB.com.
Hi, Ricky. Hi, Ricky.
Hey, Ricky.
Hi, Ricky.
Hi, Ricky.
Hey, Ricky.
Ricky, this is amazing.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls.
Inside the Magic listener feedback.
And we'll continue with the Frankenweenie music here to round out the show with a whole lot of listener feedback. I've got plenty of emails to share from the last couple of weeks, so let's just jump right into it and see how many we can crank out over the next 25 minutes or so. Eric writes in and says, my family and I are taking our annual pilgrimage to Walt Disney World in December. This is our third year going in December. However, the previous 2 years were earlier in the month, and I realized just before Christmas will be crazy. What kind of crowds do you think we can expect early in the week? You pretty much nailed it there, Eric. Crazy is the word. The whole week of Christmas, whether Christmas falls on a Monday or a Friday, that's the week the crowds show up. You have to imagine if no matter what weekday or even the weekend Christmas is on, people are going to want to take that weekend, either right after, right before, or both, or carry over into New Year's, and even the week after Christmas leading into New Year's is crazy as well. So it's going to be heavy, and that's why Disney sort of does away with the very Merry Christmas party at that point and just lets loose all of the Christmas entertainment, the parade and the fireworks for everybody at the Magic Kingdom at that point, which is a nice plus, but it's also very, very crowded. So that's pretty much what you can expect. Nate writes in and says, I was thinking, how come Disney doesn't capitalize on the legend of the Hatbox Ghost? Since they want to bring Nightmare Before Christmas, they could install one character in the Haunted Mansion. They could tag it Guess Who's Back, or the 1000th Ghost is Back. With today's technology, I think they can pull it off the illusion that they couldn't do back in the 70s. Also, how come Hollywood Studios doesn't do any monster stuff for Halloween? Magic Kingdom has kid-friendly. Why not a teen/adult scare at that park? Other than Star Wars weekends, I can't think of any other big events that this park has events set to movies. Nate, good questions. I agree. I think the Hatbox Ghost should come back. I think there should be a scary Halloween event over at Hollywood Studios. I would love both of those things, either of those things. Why though? Couldn't tell you. Well, I can tell you a little bit. Hatbox Ghost, no idea. I mean, that's something that's been rumored for a while. Could happen. Who knows? As far as the Halloween event, I actually wrote an article a couple of years ago. If you head on over to InsideTheMagic.net, you will find it searching for kind of I don't know what you would search for to find it easily. Halloween, I guess, but I've written a lot of Halloween stuff. It's an article kind of comparing the various Halloween events around the Disney parks around the world. The U.S. versus Paris versus Tokyo versus Hong Kong, and even with some official thoughts from some reps overseas from Disney. And it's interesting to kind of compare what is acceptably scary and what is not versus the cultures in this country versus overseas, etc. And unfortunately, it seems that Disney feels the scares just really have no place in this country at Disney parks, whereas overseas they most definitely do. So hopefully that'll change someday. Anne writes in, this is related to a recent comment, I think from last week. I was mentioning the presentation by the Imagineers from the D23 Epcot 30th, and I was talking about how there potentially could be reanimated zombies in what I called the Stave Church in Norway. Well, according to Anne, she writes, just FYI, the pronunciation, see, I can't even pronounce that, the pronunciation of the Stave churches in Norway is Stav. This is not immediately apparent unless you speak Norwegian. And I assume then you must speak Norwegian. I certainly don't. And apparently neither did the Imagineers, because I'm pretty sure in the presentation last Sunday they said Stave. But if you say it's Stav, let's go with that. The Stav churches in Norway is how it's going to be from now on, unless somebody writes in and says Anne is making things up. So, yeah. Next up is an email from Eric, who writes, I was looking for a little insight from you. I'm a seasoned Disney World visitor and actually had the chance to go to Disneyland and California Adventure for the first time in July, which was very cool. My girlfriend and I are staying at the Beach Club from end of September, early October, which I guess is right now. This is kind of an old email. Anyway, continuing, he writes, for the Epcot Food and Wine Festival and the festivities at Epcot's 30th anniversary. I've never been there for the food and wine. I don't know what to expect and feel like a fish out of water. What do you think the crowds will be like? I'm assuming it will be very busy the first weekend. And are there any events we should absolutely go to? Well, Eric, I apologize for not responding to this like a week or two ago when it would have been more helpful. But for anybody else out there who's thinking about going to the Food and Wine Festival, yeah, this past weekend, the opening weekend, always extremely crowded. I was at Epcot for the 30th, and it was extremely crowded. Lots of people walking around with plates of food and glasses of wine, and I actually have not partaken in the Food and Wine Festival yet this year. As a result of that, I will be very soon, of course, and certainly will make everybody hungry by talking about it here. But short of that, later weeks and weekdays, actually, great time to go to the Food and Wine Festival because the locals don't. I mean, at night, yeah, but during the day, most people work or go to school. Good time to go if you're on vacation. And it gets less and less as the weeks go on until sort of the end. The last weekend, everybody rushes out because they're like, oh, food and wine, gotta go. Yeah. Did I answer your questions? Special events. There are indeed special events for the Food and Wine Festival. There's lots of them. In fact, things you have to sign up for, things you can just show up for. I believe this week Kat Cora was here doing a presentation. There were others as well. You just kind of have to check that guide and figure out what's going on. Let's see. Papa Bear North writes in and says, this week's listener emails, which who knows at this point what week Papa Bear is referring to. Could have been a month ago. Anyway, writes, featured a two-part question, but the second part went unanswered. What do you know about what's happening with the rocket rods / people mover track at Disneyland? I apologize for not answering the second part of whatever question that was, however long it was ago. Nothing is happening with the rocket rod / people mover track at Disneyland. Nothing. That's not really sure what else to say. Nothing. Peter writes in and says, greetings from the UK. I've been a fan of the show since episode 20 and went back to and listened to all the old shows and been listening to your show every week since. He goes on to praise me further and further and further. Peter, I appreciate that, but I do not need to share all of that here. Continuing on, Peter writes, I'm writing to you as I just listened to your latest show, 389, so a few episodes ago, where one girl asked if it was all right to visit Disney World alone. Simple answer is YES! Exclamation point, exclamation point, exclamation point, exclamation point, exclamation point. I did this last year. I traveled to Orlando from the UK alone and stayed at Pop Century and used the Disney transport everywhere and went everywhere. I was in the parks for 12 hours or more using the extra magic hours. No one to hold me back or get tired. I rode the rides that I wanted to ride and rode them again and used single rider lines, ate when I wanted, was able to get a table at a restaurant quicker. I browsed shops over and over again, parked hopped, resort hopped, queued for any character I wanted. I even queued 2 hours for a photo and autograph with Tinkerbell. I'm 35 and didn't worry me about going alone at all. I was not afraid to ask people to take my photo. I even did things that I would not normally do, like a behind the magic tour alone, snuck up on the roof of the Contemporary Resort in the Bay Lake Tower and took photos of the Magic Kingdom from above, and so much more. It did get a little lonesome, but take an iPad, iPod, iPhone, whatever, fill it with Disney trivia or hidden Mickey apps. Don't be afraid to get talking to other people in the queues. I kept bumping into the same family while queuing for Disney characters to sign my Vinylmation. We got chatting and passed the time, and now with Wi-Fi in the parks, I recommend FaceTiming, calling friends, and I people watched and took the time around the parks at my leisure, fast and slow, and saw things that I could have missed. So I totally recommend going to Walt Disney World alone. It is a different experience and totally worth it. Peter, excellent description of what it feels like to go to the parks alone. I completely relate to everything that you just wrote that I just read, because that's exactly what going to the parks alone is all about. Sure, you don't want to go all the time alone. You want friends, you want family, you want to do all of that, but sometimes it is fun. You get to do whatever you want, and that's a good thing. Next up from Giancarlos, who writes, isn't the Rafiki statue at the Art of Animation Resort the same one from Rafiki's Planet Watch? I think they took the one from Disney's Animal Kingdom and placed it at Art of Animation because Rafiki's Planet Watch and the empty space beyond Asia is going to be where Pandora will be built. What do you think? I'm not totally sure on that. It seems that Pandora could be built, or Avatar Land, or whatever, could be built in a number of different places over at Animal Kingdom. Camp Mini Mickey could certainly be one area, which has nothing to do with Rafiki's Planet Watch. And as far as I know, that Rafiki statue is still over there at Animal Kingdom. Could be wrong, haven't been over there in a while, but I think it's a different statue. Similar, but a different one over at the resort. Next up, let's see, what is this name? T-R-Y-G. Trig. Makes sense. Trig from Minnesota writes, it has recently come to my attention that Ariel was recently hung on the front of a shipwreck. That's just weird, and I feel it might leave some kids asking questions. A single-color wood-carved version of her would have been a much better choice thematically. What is your opinion on this Imagineering decision, or do you think another department forced this move? Super psyched for your Halloween Horror Nights and Hallow Scream coverage this year. Your reviews and updates are truly the best in the business. Well, Trig, I absolutely appreciate that. Hopefully you have been enjoying my talking here about those events, as well as everything I've been posting and will continue to post over on the website from all the Halloween goodies. With regards to Ariel, you're of course talking about the Ariel figurehead that has been installed over at the Little Mermaid ride in New Fantasyland. Actually, a new image was released by Disney just this week showing that off. And yeah, you're not the only one to think it's a little weird looking that you've basically got Ariel mounted and hung up on a shipwrecked ship in front of the attraction. It is indeed a little odd looking, a little off-putting. In fact, it's it doesn't look as bad, sort of seeing the whole picture now. Like I said, Disney released it, and those of you watching the video version, I'm putting that up right now. In the grand scheme of things, around the whole area, it actually looks pretty good. But yeah, it's a little odd to have that being the representation of Ariel there, versus, not having her like that, sort of a more lifelike version. But, I guess it's a tribute to her, and the real Ariel, of course, will be there meeting everybody completely alive and not hung on a ship. That'd be good for Frankenweenie, though, I suppose. Next, an email from Blake from Victoria, British Columbia, who writes, your show is great. I walk home from work once a week, and listening to your podcast is a great thing to do on that 6-kilometer walk. I sure appreciated all the news and updates, and I've been meaning to write to you since episode 381. On that show, Skipper Ben mentioned that he was scared and or intimidated by frogs. Isn't there a bit of irony, since he was describing his favorite place to work was Muppet Labs? Must have been very stressful working for Kermit the Frog. Good observation there. Yeah, he definitely worked over at Muppet Vision for 3D for a while, and perhaps that's what fueled his anti-frogness after having to watch that film over and over and over and over and over and over and over. I don't know. I'll have to ask him next time. Next up, an email from Andrea, who writes, I'm a longtime listener. My family and I live in the UK. It keeps us up to date with what's happening at our favorite holiday destination. We're coming over to Orlando for 3 weeks in March, and while we're there, we're going on the Disney Dream for a 3-night cruise. It will be our 8th trip to Disney World, but our first cruise. So I had a few questions I wanted answers to, wondering if you knew anything about it. It said on the panel that if you take a blank pillowcase or a large blank vinylmation and a marker board with your name and room details and hand them in at guest relations on the ship, that the characters would autograph them and be ready for you when you leave. It seems like a really good idea, and if this is the case, I think we would really like to do it. What a great souvenir of your time on the ship. Andrea, that's the first time I have ever heard of that. It wouldn't surprise me if that was a wonderful little perk that Disney could offer. Of course, it's tough to bring things like that around the ship. You're on the go, you're going to the pool, you're riding the aqueduct, you're in and out of your stateroom, you're eating, you're going on shore and back on board and all of that, and to carry around an autograph book or vinylmation could be quite a pain. So to be able to sort of get all the characters to sign that behind the scenes for you is probably a good option. If anyone else out there can confirm that, it'd be the first time I have heard of it. So get back to you, I suppose. Next, an email from Ryan, who writes, my fiance is craving Goofy's fudge, and with no trip planned until next year, she may be out of luck. Is there anywhere online to order it? Ryan, no, unfortunately, I don't know of anywhere you can order Goofy's fudge online. There are certainly many products you can order from the parks over at DisneyStore.com, but when it comes to sort of items that you can expire like that, I don't think Disney makes a habit of shipping those out. And next is an email from Jose, who writes, first, great podcast, never miss it, keep up the awesome work. I wanted to get some suggestions from you and maybe also Skipper Ben. I'll be attending a conference in late January at Disney World. Since it's my son's first birthday during the conference, my wife and I decided to take advantage of the trip and have all 3 of us go. We'll be staying at the Yacht Club for a week, and while my son's actual birthday is on a Wednesday, that's a conference day, our time that day is limited to something after 4 p.m. However, we have open days on Friday and Saturday. Plan to visit Animal Kingdom on Friday, Magic Kingdom on Saturday. We know our son probably won't remember much from the trip, but it's the memories that we would like to make. Any suggestions on what we should look into to celebrate my son's first birthday? I've heard Crystal Palace would be a good idea, but I wanted to get input from you both. Well, I can't speak on behalf of Skipper Ben, but for me, those experiences, Crystal Palace, character dining, all of that is great for sort of experiencing it for yourself. You can make memories for yourself, but what I think when it comes to bringing young kids, you want to bring your camera and take so many pictures, because then you can go revisit that trip later on in life with your son when he grows old enough to sort of look back and think, wow, that's me at 1 year old in the parks, 1 year old in the parks. If you want to bring them to character greeting, meal, etc., make sure you get those pictures with the characters. Make a whole photo album full of, just take your kid's picture in front of absolutely everything. His first ride in the Haunted Mansion, the first ride in Pirates, the first almost not quite ride in Space Mountain, longingly looking at the height requirement and years ahead being able to go on it, things like that. Find some inventive ways of sort of marking the moment that he is indeed 1, not 2 or 3 or 20, that make it a special thing like that. Evan writes in and says, I just wanted to let all the Inside the Magic listeners know that starting October 2nd, a few days ago, all Disney Blu-rays will be worth 150 points rather than 125 on Disney Movie Rewards. I know it's not a huge change, but it's great for the members who buy mostly every release. I also wanted to touch on Enchanted Tales with Belle a little bit. Although I am impressed with the 2 audio animatronics, I find it a bit strange that they left Cogsworth out of the attraction. I would have liked to see him and Lumiere crack a few jokes and go at it like they do in the film. I also feel like it should make the attraction a bit more adult-friendly before its final stage. It seems way too childish and on the verge of boring as it is now. Evan, thanks for the tip about the Disney Movie Rewards. I'm way behind on entering my codes in, and that sounds like it's a good thing because now I can get 150 for him instead of 125. As far as Enchanted Tales, I'm in agreement. I found it a bit odd that Cogsworth seems to be nowhere. Maybe he'll work his way into Be Our Guest restaurant. We don't know yet. But he's certainly not in Enchanted Tales, and he won't be around Lumiere in there, like you said, and yeah, it's a little bit childish in there. Of course, it is I don't know, I struggle with this. It's a kids attraction. It's aimed at kids. It's supposed to get kids involved and playful and happy, and they have a good time, but really it should be for everybody. Bring out the kid in all of us and make it work for everybody, not just young kids. Heather writes in and says, thanks for all the great work. I would love to hear a show about the whole college program. I know Skipper Ben and his wife both participated in the program, and I would think others would like to hear the pros, the cons, the surprises, where they lived, how they were treated, etc. My daughter will be going to college in a few years, and she's already talking about doing this. Well, Heather, if you search back through the history of Inside the Magic, you will find at least one, I think it was more like 2 or 3 episodes that Skipper Ben did devote to his time at the college program, talking all about everything that you've just said. I'm not sure his wife Lisa ever really shared too much about it, but he certainly did. I don't have those episode numbers on hand at the moment, unfortunately, but perhaps if you go to the website and search for college program, you might be able to pull them up that way. Otherwise, just go back, start in episode 5 or so, and just kind of work your way forward. You'll get there eventually in another year or 2 now. Maybe by the time your daughter graduates college, I don't know, but they're out there somewhere. All right, let's keep on going with the emails with an email from Clayton, who writes, I'm hoping you can help me with a question. I'm going to Disneyland in November, and will I see any Christmas decorations? What places would you recommend for lunch? Well, Clayton, I'm glad I read this email this week because now I can actually answer your question. You actually wrote you'll be there November 5th through 8th. You'll be just short of the Christmas decorations. It sounds like the Christmas festivities are going to begin November 12th at Disneyland this year. That's not to say they won't have some Christmas decorations up when you go. They'll probably be in the process of putting them up. You may even encounter the Christmas Day Parade taping in early November. They like to do that sometimes by then. I'm not sure of the dates for that this year. But you won't get the full swing of Christmas when you are there, and Halloween will already have ended. You're kind of in that weird transitional phase. As far as what would I recommend for lunch, Cafe Orleans is fantastic. Of course, they have the Monte Cristo sandwich there, which I love, and the pommes frites. Also, let's see, what else do I love? The chicken nachos that I talk about all the time over at Whitewater Snacks at Grand California. I always have the same things to recommend. Bengal barbecue over in Adventureland is pretty good. Just avoid the pizza port. Don't go to the pizza port in Tomorrowland. Anywhere else. Disneyland has so much great food. The Jolly Holiday Bakery over on Main Street. Excellent sandwiches there. Just don't do that pizza port thing. It's not good. Next up, an email from Leo, who writes, I had a question about flights to Orlando. I'm heading to Walt Disney World after Thanksgiving and wanted to ask you, what airline do you recommend for good pricing? My friend and I have been taking Delta and Virgin. What airlines do you recommend for good fares? I know you're often asked this question. I ask since you make it out to Disneyland often, or when there's an event going on. Any tips? Leo, Virgin America is my airline of choice. It is comfortable. It has power. It has internet. It has all the good stuff that you want out of an airline, and really none of the bad stuff. And the airfare is not too bad either. I've actually got the Virgin America credit card that accumulates points and miles and all that stuff. So many of my flights are, if not in part, if not fully paid for. Of course, every so often you have to accumulate the points, and that can take time, but when that does happen, it's a fun reward, so that's a good thing as well. Michael writes in and says, quick question for a play that I read in class today. There was a reference to one of the characters going to Anaheim to Disneyland and riding Body Wars. Is that possible? I was under the impression that the only Body Wars was at the Wonders of Life Pavilion. Was there a Body Wars at Disneyland? No, Michael, that sounds like a mistake. Body Wars was indeed only at Wonders of Life out here at Walt Disney World. There's Star Tours out in California, which is similar. So maybe that's what they meant. Let's see, just a couple of more emails as we approach the 1 hour time limit that I pretend to have on this show, because I actually have an insane amount of emails remaining, so we'll just kind of fit a couple of more in here and then move on to round out the show. Of course, in the middle of talking about all of that just now, I completely lost my place. There it is. Chrisann writes in, a DVC member from New Jersey, who writes, I'm a longtime listener of your show and I love it. In August of 2013, I will be staying at the Beach Club with my husband and 6-year-old daughter. We're vacationing with another couple and their daughter. We will be taking turns watching each other's children so that we can have an adult night out. So here's my question. What are your top 3 restaurants for an adult night out? My husband and I enjoy great food and great atmosphere. Any suggestions would be greatly appreciated. Well, Chrisann, big question there, because there's so many good restaurants out there. Of course, if you want a completely, exclusively adult experience, Victoria and Albert's over the Grand Floridian, is the place to go, because kids are not allowed in there. Of course, it's expensive, and you have to go dressy to get in there, so that's not necessarily for everybody. Short of that, just outside there is Citrico's, which I mentioned recently. I went to for my anniversary a couple of weeks ago, not even a week and a half ago. Loved it. First time I had ever been there. There were kids in there, but they weren't particularly particularly annoying or anything, and it's got a good atmosphere. Not great. I think it's more about the food in there than the atmosphere. Boma, easily my favorite restaurant at Walt Disney World. It has good atmosphere, great food. Yeah, you're going to run into kids there. It is a buffet, but it's a great buffet with really unique flavors. Right across from there, maybe you'll be better off at Jico, which is a table service restaurant. Similar flavors, it's a fusion cuisine type of restaurant, and you'll find a lot of good stuff there with sort of a better, a less hectic atmosphere, I guess you could put it. Let's see what else. Ohana, the Polynesian, certainly great. A lot of group activity there. Yeah, you're going to find kids there as well. It's, I know you're looking for sort of adult night out options, which makes me think you want quiet and comfort. And, Portobello's over at Downtown Disney is really nice. A great food there. A very dark atmosphere, usually pretty quiet. So there's another one to throw out there. That's all I got off the top of my head right now, but certainly if you have any specific questions about specific restaurants, feel free to write to me again, and I'll try to shoot you an email back and let you know. So there it is. That's where I'm going to stop listener feedback this week. I do have many, many more emails to share, and of course many coming in all the time, which I appreciate it. As long as you're patient in getting a response, that's fine with me. So there it is. Your listener feedback for this week.